Hello, I wanted to pick up a few points from your comments. John Hasty says, you're making this sound as sleazy as possible. You are being vile again. Is there any evidence that any of those people knew what Epstein was up to? And remember, a lot of people, including myself, have nothing but distaste for the wife-cheating adulterer who is now head of the church. But you say nothing about him. I didn't realize the Pope was married. Why is it you seem to eye in on an individual and hound that person with hate-filled posts until you destroy them and then move on to your next victim? I'm not sure I have, really. Anyway. There's another one here. Babs3652 says, Harry has distanced himself by backstabbing his family. It's clear how he regards them. I don't think it is. The worst thing is they can't defend themselves against the blabbing man-child. Queen Elizabeth made it clear to him that he would lose his security when he left. I don't think that's the case. In fact, I think there's fairly clear evidence she wanted him to keep his security. He still doesn't even get that. On top of everything, his wife is a disaster, but that's another story. How do you know? How do you know? There's a lot of speculation going on, and there's this sort of division between fact and fiction, between evidence and suspicion. Now, I'm very clear, and I've made it very clear a few times. When it comes to law and when it comes to crime, that is based on evidence, and judge and jury make a decision. When it comes to reputation, that is based, I'm afraid, on what is reported, what is said, and the way the wider public draw their conclusions. It's not based on evidence. And this is the distinction which Julius Caesar made, so it goes all the way back to then, between what people say and what people suspect, and he said that Caesar's wife must be above suspicion, and therefore he divorced her. Not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she was the subject of gossip. And the same thing is true, I'm afraid, about Prince Andrew. It's not really that he's done anything wrong. We don't know. And we won't know unless there's a court case and a criminal case and he's found guilty, in which case there'll be further consequences. But he has drawn sleaze and gossip and lurid speculation to the heart of the monarchy in a way that I think hasn't happened before. That's not what Prince Harry is doing. Prince Harry is perhaps the author of, or allowing, people like Omid Scobie to gossip and to speculate, but he's not drawn the lurid stories right to the heart of the monarchy. And I don't think he would. I think there's a difference between Prince Andrew and Prince Harry, and I think it's a fundamental difference. I think at heart, Harry is about principle and about looking after his family. And I'm afraid I don't think one could say the same thing about Prince Andrew. On the other hand, I have it on very good authority that the Duchess of York is a spectacular mother. Her children have been raised superbly. Now, part of that must be down to her influence over Prince Andrew. I think the Duchess of York has done a fine job and has been an extraordinarily important person in the story of the monarchy during the last 30 years. I think she's done a sterling job, and I think she should be praised. I also think that somebody should take her husband, or her former husband, to one side and have a quiet word with him. It's up to him, I think, to take the decision and go. And it's his desire to cling on and to insist that he's done nothing wrong. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. As for Mr. Putin, There's one or two things saying here that I don't need evidence to attack Mr. Putin. Well, no, I don't. But that's because, again, Mr. Putin represents the very worst of the Kremlin authorities, and the attack on a defenseless country, a country which is defenseless because it gave its weapons to the Kremlin, is appalling, absolutely and utterly appalling. And it was done simply because President Zelensky threatened to break the Minsk treaties, which were signed under duress anyway. So, do I have evidence that Mr. Putin is dead or alive? No. Do I need evidence? Not really. Not really, frankly. I mean, there are people who have already engineered their future, whether they have realized it or not. And Mr. Putin has engineered his future. Even if he's not physically dead, he is metaphorically dead. He is politically dead. Dead in the water. And maybe he's orchestrating things from some sort of second life behind the freezer, nudging up against a piece of cold cod. But no, Mr. Putin has dealt his own death warrant when he invaded Ukraine. And it doesn't take the West to inflict that. It doesn't take Zelensky to inflict that. He did that himself. And eventually, there will come a point where he will not be able to silence, or the Kremlin authorities will not be able to silence, the gathering noises across Russia that protest against this tyranny. So yes, I take great pleasure in talking about Mr. Putin's supposed death and the evidence, because there is evidence, of at least 3 doppelgangers who in various forms are parading around and pretending to be Putin. And there is quite strong speculation that even in the television program just before Christmas, where Mr. Putin answered lots of questions in some sort of scripted scenario, that was not him. And indeed, if you compare that performance with the performance 2 years ago, it looks very different. He looks very different, and he sounds slightly different. Maybe that's just age. Maybe that's ennui. Maybe that's the effects of evil and nastiness. Or maybe it's simply that isn't him.